Hey guys, it's me and Sally Rose from Two Friends in the Bible. She wanted to get on and say hello. But anyway, I am coming on today to do our number 16th update. Don't have a lot. I have stuff, but it's not a ton. It shouldn't last too long. So I am just going to go ahead and get started, and I hope everybody's doing well. Okay, so here we go. And today we're going to be talking about Russia, nuclear bombs, Israel, and the fact that we are on high watch for the rapture coming up next week or over the next couple of weeks. But big high watch next week. So I'm going to give you a little information on that. But we're going to start off first with this morning, it appears another earthquake has hit Mexico. And it was in a little bit of a different area, and it is a 7 on the scale, Richter scale again. The one that hit a few days ago was a 7.6. Some are saying that it's probably an aftershock, but many are just saying no, it's not possible because it hit in a different area. So anyway, regardless, it was a 7, which is quite big. And a 5.8 has hit in New Zealand as well this morning. And right before I got on here, I saw where I believe there was a 4.4 in Italy. So we got a lot of shaking going on. Okay, so Russia. I'm sure most of us have heard of this, but I'm going to go ahead and update you anyway. Yesterday, Putin went on TV, on the news, and gave a speech, and it was a short one. And obviously, we've been talking about this. He's not happy about what's going on in Ukraine, but he's not going to give up. So he is changing tactics on what he's going to do, and he's putting together a partial mobilization, which means that he is calling up all reservists and anyone that has served in the Russian army previously. All the airlines, railroads have tripled their prices due to so many people trying to get out of Russia right now. The borders to Finland and Georgia are slammed with people trying to get out of Russia. Airlines and railroads, they will not sell any tickets to any men that are between the ages of 18 to 65 years old. So that's, you think about it, if they end up doing the draft next, which I'm assuming that's probably what they're going to do is an actual draft. Can you imagine being 65 years old and getting caught up into a war? I mean, I'm 55 and I got aches and pains. I just can't even imagine going out and doing all that. I just, prayers for them, because this isn't the Russian people's fault, and it's just not good. And he also said that if anyone has been called up and does not show up or goes AWOL during the war or surrenders, they will face jail time up to 10 years. So it's crazy. But about 300,000 orders have gone out, and several reservists, as of this morning, have begun to arrive at the recruiting offices. I think it was more their time last night, but they're arriving at the recruiting offices. And this is the people that are not trying to get out of of Russia, going to Georgia or to Finland or on airplanes. And I showed no, it was on my Facebook, but it's a picture of just all the airplanes getting out of Russia. And I don't think it's all just the men. I think it's the people as well. But Putin is planning to annex the city of, and I'm going to butcher these names, so I will spell them. But the first one is Donbass. The second one is Kherson, Kherson. And the third one is Zaporizhia, Zaporizhzhia. He's wanting to annex those 3 cities. I believe those 3 cities he's still has control of, and Ukraine has not taken over those. And if these cities, the governors, approve the proposal, which I suspect they probably will, any attack on them by Ukraine will be considered an attack on Russia, and a declaration of war will ensue. Because, right now it's a military operation. It's not considered a war. No, It is, but it's not considered that. So any aggression against these areas will be considered an act of war, and the big guns will be brought out. And when they're talking about big guns, they're talking about the nukes. And in the event of a war, Belarus will also be obligated to declare war due to an agreement between Russia and themselves. So they'll be obligated to declare war. And so that means Belarus will be getting involved. And if these governments, these governors in Putin agree to this annexation, which I think we'll know in the next few days about that, then that Russia's going to consider that, Putin's going to consider that their new border, okay? And then the referendums on these annexations, okay, yeah, the referendums, they're supposed to do this on 9/23, which is tomorrow, okay? So, and then Russia and some of the surrounding countries have what they call an Article 4, the Collective Security Treaty, also known as CST, which includes 6 post-Soviet states, and they are Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Russia. States that if any aggression against one of these countries will be a aggression against all the countries. So that in addition to Belarus and Russia have an agreement, they have the CRT with these other countries. And if any aggression goes against Russia, then it's the same thing as going against those countries. It's kind of like NATO, but with just those countries. And Putin has stated clearly he is not bluffing. He is not kidding, and he will pull the big guns if anyone tries to intervene. And, you know, sometimes you can kind of say, oh, yeah, whatever. But no, I think with Putin, you can believe it, you know. And then also, Russia has brought in its 217th Regiment of paratroopers from Syria to Ukraine. So in other words, he took back some of his troops in Syria and brought them to Ukraine. And I'm assuming he did that because the ones that are getting called up from the reserves who have ever been in the military are going to have to go through a 30-day training before they get thrown into the line. And Putin also stated that the West is wanting to weaken, divide, and destroy Russia. Russia's defense minister stated, all types of weapons, including the nuclear capability, will fulfill their missions. And then yesterday, Moscow stock market started crashing, and it actually crashed at 8%, and that's huge in one day. That's huge. So, yeah, so they're starting to crash. And our U.S. senior American general stated that if Russia uses nuclear weapons in Ukraine, the U.S. will destroy the Russian Black Sea Fleet. And I believe our Navy can do that. I do. So I guess we'll see what happens. And, you know, honestly, Russia has 6,500 nukes. So if they're going to shoot them into Ukraine, I don't know why they wouldn't shoot them to our Navy, you know. But if he starts shooting off nukes, then you know NATO's going to get involved with that as well. So this is getting even more ugly than it was. And then I was watching the news last night, and there's this huge protest going on in all kinds of, like, I think it's 15 different cities in Russia. They don't want the war. They want it to stop. There was at least, as of this morning, 364 people that were arrested for this. I don't know what the count is now. And starting today, Moscow, there are going to be checkpoints across Russia that are going to be manned by military police. And they're doing that for any of the men that are trying to escape, because you don't just have your reservists and your previous military being called up, demanding, you know, there's no if, ands, or buts, you're coming. In addition to them, they're putting basically on hold any men 18 to 65 years old that they will probably most likely be calling next. So people are trying to get out of there, you know, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them. So we'll keep that in mind. We'll keep them in prayers. We'll keep the Russians in prayers, the Ukrainians in prayer. I mean, this is not their fault, you know? This is not their fault. And I saw where China is hoping, China is actually hoping that Putin will set a precedent by winning this Ukraine war. He's actually watching them to see how this is going before he attacks Taiwan, we believe, to see how it's going, because, you know, it gives them ideas on how he can take over Taiwan. And even though Taiwan is much smaller than China, you know, most likely the West is going to help them the same way that they helped the Ukraine. And that's what's hurt, you know, Russia, is the West helping, because Russia wasn't anticipating them to have all the advanced military equipment and things that they've got. And so that's really what's hurt them. And there have been U.S. and Canadian warships that have conducted a Taiwan Strait transit. It's the second one they've done since Pelosi's visit. China just slammed the warship transit as a public hype. You know, he's that's just, you know, you're just doing that to hype up the public. And then and then from China surrounding Taiwan like they are, you know, Taiwan's got their internet like cables, I guess, under the water that leads them out to the world. And I guess with their ships and things being there, it's starting to really interrupt Taiwan's internet. So they're starting to have some problems with that. Canada, amazingly, has dropped its vaccine mandate, and you can start entering their country without the vaccine on 9/30/22. I was kind of surprised about that, because Trudeau has been so adamant about vaccine, you know, and making his people get the vaccine, and then turns around and lets people come into his country and drops the vaccine mandate. So does that mean he's going to drop it for his people? I hope so. Okay, and then Iran. Iran's always got something going on, don't they? I swear. But, you know, they used to be called Persia in the Bible. If you didn't know that, they were called Persia in the Bible. I think it was either 1932 or 1939 when they changed their name. But they were called Persia in the Bible, so they always been troublemakers. But it's not, again, it's not the Iranian people's fault. It's the government, the harlot. So, but they're actually having really huge riots across their country right now. And the reason that this happened was Iran has like what you call the moral police. They literally are there to make sure people are morally doing what they're supposed to do. And you know, the women wear the scarves, the jihads, I think they're called the jihads or something, but they're the scarves, you know, and they have to wear them a certain way so that, I mean, it's not as bad as like what Afghanistan has to do, where everything is covered, the whole body and everything, but they are required to wear those, and they have to wear them a certain way. And apparently there was a 22-year-old woman who was not wearing it properly. And so the moral police get her, and they end up beating her to death over a stupid scarf. And because of this, riots started a few days ago, and I believe women started it. And which is just, I mean, it's huge, dangerous in Iran, huge. And they took off, I believe, their scarves, and they started rioting for what they did. And now all the riots are just going on all over the countries. And so authorities in Iran have actually blocked access to Instagram, which I don't know why that's so important. I guess so people can't report. I haven't heard that they have blocked like Facebook or Tumblr or Telegram or Twitter or any of those, but they have blocked Instagram. And following the riots last night, they had the biggest communication blackout that they've had since 2019. And most of the cellular networks were almost completely shut down, along other types of disruptions. And so far, there's been a report of 17 people killed, and they're anticipating there's going to be a lot more. So prayers for them too. I mean, it's, you don't beat a woman to death because she's not wearing her scarf properly. And they're going, these riots, they're going after, what is it, the Ayatollah? Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see what's going to happen. Maybe this will slow down him antagonizing Israel. Probably not, but maybe. And speaking of Israel, their interim Prime Minister Lapid, this is really bad, really big too. But he stated yesterday that he intends to announce today an agreement to a two-state solution with Palestine. And he's planning on announcing it today at the UN General Assembly meeting that is taking place. And the UN General Assembly meeting started on the 13th of September and it goes through the 27th, and I believe it's in New York City. He's planning on stating that today, and just, all I can tell you is remember, Satan cannot stop what God has ordained, and he might be able to interfere a little bit, might win a couple of the little battles, but he won't win the war in the end. And that's God's land, and God, ooh, he's not going to be happy. He's going to be a little upset about that. That's not what he directed. He does not want that land separated, but this Lapid dude is talking about doing it. But Israel's going to have a new prime minister effective, November 1st, because that's when they're having their next election. So this could change things because I don't know. Things are happening so quickly right now. In the past, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I would have been like, oh, they don't have enough time, to do that. He's going to be out of office, in 6 weeks, because they'll have a new prime minister. But the way things are speeding up right now and the way things are happening, who knows? But we'll just pray because I would hate to see that. That would really upset a lot of the Jewish people. We talked about the Prime Minister of the UK a couple weeks ago, Liz Truss, and when she ran, part of her campaign promises was that she was going to look at taking UK's embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Tel Aviv is considered the capital, but by doing that, it's kind of claiming that Jerusalem is the capital, which is what number 45 did back in 2000. 1918, but it's what he did. And so she's considering moving it to Jerusalem, and this is what she told Lapid. So we'll see if that happens. Oh, there's been a really big rumor around that 20 plus FBI agents have come forward as whistleblowers, and they're calling out the agency for political bias against conservatives and pulling agents off trafficking and child sex crimes to work on these January 6 cases. See if anything else comes up with that. Okay, so now on eschatology, which is the study of the end times. I don't really consider myself an eschatologian, but in a way, I guess I am, because really do enjoy studying end times, but I enjoy studying other things as well in the Bible. But, because of what's going on, it's really, I felt like Flora and we have felt like the Holy Spirit has called us to do this. And this is why we study eschatology and why we did a Revelation series and getting ready to do another one. Times are getting short, and we're not going to hold back and not say that anymore. In the beginning, we were just like, we're not going to say when it is, and we're still not going to set a date. But Jesus does say we won't know the day or hour, but he doesn't say we won't know the season. And this season, this coming fall, is basically a very, very high watch time. And when I say high watch, I mean for the rapture. Many, many, many people are actually reporting that this is a huge watch time. Now, if you don't study eschatology and you don't study end times, you might not, your thought might be, oh, come on. They've been saying this for years. But, even if you don't have time to do our whole 101s, our whole Revelation series, at least do the 2 videos of the Revelation summary where we summarized everything we went over and kind of explained some things. But we really started seeing a lot of prophecies being fulfilled when Israel became a nation in 1948. And to be honest with you, I agree with these people that we are definitely in a very, very high watch time. And if you'd have asked me 2 years ago, I'd have been like, oh, Jesus can't come back until everyone has heard of him, because that's what I was always taught. Well, how can everyone hear of him? There's babies being born every day. It's not possible that everyone is going to hear of him before he returns. It's just not possible. Not to mention, you've got tribe nations out there that we don't even know exist at this point, and much less know their language. I mean, yeah, we got tons of missionaries going out and doing, and witnessing to these people and whatnot, but there's still tribes we don't even know about. So I don't see how it could ever happen, you know? I don't know. I'm just kind of going by my interpretation. And, and like I said, I kind of agree. It is very high watch time. But, however, just please note, if the rapture does not happen in the next couple of weeks, it doesn't mean it will not happen. And I mean sooner than later, because Jesus says it will, and Jesus doesn't lie. So we know it's going to happen. So I'm going to tell you, you got your pre-tribbers, you got your mid-tribbers, you got your post-tribbers, right? Pre-trib believe rapture 7 years, mid-trib believe 3.5 years of tribulation, rapture 3.5 years of the great tribulation. Post-tribbers believe that we're going to be here for the whole tribulation and then raptured out at the end before the wrath of God happens in, the war of Armageddon. It's like every time I go in there and I really think, okay, I have really got an idea of how this is, that this is pre. Oh, yeah. And then I hear someone else and it's like, well, what is that mid? Because there's a lot of evidence to so many different ways. And but what I do know is the rapture is going to happen and Jesus is going to return. So we just need to remember that. And if, one thing we need to remember when I tell you some of the things that are going to be happening next week is that there's going to come even if the rapture doesn't happen in the next couple of weeks, there's a couple things that could happen. It could mean with it, we might have messed the dates up a little bit, or it could mean that next season, next fall, is when it's actually going to happen. We do know it isn't going to be long. But it could also mean that maybe the mid-tribbers were right. Now, maybe the post-tribbers were right. So even if the rapture doesn't happen in the next few weeks, doesn't mean that maybe the mid wasn't right or the post. So you need to know what your seals, trumpets, and bowls are. That is so important. And the most important evidence that Jesus gave us was the abomination of desolation, which is the midpoint of the tribulation. Is when the Antichrist sits on the throne and declares himself God. And that's the abomination of desolation. That's the one big, big, big thing that Jesus told us. So we know when we see that, there's no doubt. Okay. And if you didn't listen to my red heifer video I did a couple days ago, might want to go listen to it. It explains a lot of that. Okay. So just remember, it could be some interpretation. Okay. It's a lot to interpret. And unfortunately, 100 or so years ago, people were interpreting the word, but God clearly told Daniel in his prophecies to seal up the book until the time of the end. So our spiritual eyes were not open to be able to see some of the things that we're seeing now, okay? Because now we are in that last generation. And if you're not in the word, your eyes aren't going to be open to the signs either, okay? So the more you're in the word, the more you're going to see the things that could be happening. Okay, so just an FYI, I wasn't even planning on going there, but there you go. And you know what? There is nothing wrong with getting excited about these high watch times either. It's a very exciting times. Just remember, don't put your trust in a date, but in Jesus. His timing is perfect. And just remember, he tells us in Matthew 24 to be watchful. He says, that he's going to come like a thief in the night. Well, if we're sitting here in our home and we are prepared and we are watching, thief isn't going to be able to trick us. Thief isn't going to be able to sneak in on us. But if we're not watching, then he will. Okay, so you need to watch. So these are the things, some of the things that's getting ready to start happening. And one is Rosh Hashanah. That is going to start either Sunday or Monday. There will be, what happens is there's two witnesses, and this is in Israel, who will watch for the sliver of the new moon. So we have a new moon coming up around that time. And what they do is they watch for that little sliver of the crescent moon. As soon as they see that, then Rosh Hashanah begins. Okay, that's why it could be either Sunday or Monday. And it's interesting about that too, because it's the same thing Jesus said about the rapture, to watch, right? And no one knows the day or hour. Same thing with Rosh Hashanah. No one really knows the exact day or hour. You're watching for that sliver of the crescent moon. So kind of similar to the rapture, right? And this is Rosh Hashanah is the New Year for the Jews. Also, there's also gonna be the Feast of Trumpets, and at the Feast of Trumpets, they blow the shofar, which is that long horn, and they blow it 100 times at the end as a celebration. And they do blow it 100 times, which is a resemblance of the last trumpet when the rapture is ready to happen, because he says when the last trumpet blows. And I believe trumpet in translation is referring to a shofar. Okay, so there's that. Then also on the 26th, which is Monday, the new Shemitah cycle starts. If you don't know what a Shemitah cycle is, God instructed in the book of Deuteronomy that the Jews were to work their land for 6 years, right? And to work, be profitable, whatever, for 6 years. And then on that 7th year, they were instructed to rest. And that 7th year of the Shemitah cycle is called the sabbatical year. We are currently, Jews are the ones that actually, most of us don't follow Jewish customs, but it totally relates to the end times. But we are in the 7th year of this last Shemitah cycle, so we are in the sabbatical year right now. And Jewish customs will tell you whatever happens in that 7th year of the Shemitah cycle is how the next 7 years are going to be. So that would mean whatever's happened this year is how the next 7 years are going to be. Yeah, not good, but that's okay. That's okay. So anyway, that's starting. The Shemitah cycle is starting on Monday. Okay, and that's the 7th, and it lasts 7 years. Then also we have the 50th Jubilee beginning this next month. The red heifers that I talked about in my last video that Israel's gotten, they will be out of quarantine on September 26th. They have to stay 10 days in quarantine from the time they got to Israel. So that, that's a country law. But they will be out of quarantine come September 26th, so they'll be able to review them and see if they got damaged on the ride over from Texas and see if the 5 heifers are still without blemish. I would think out of 5, at least one's still good, but we'll see. And they are 17 to 20 months old, so they can be sacrificed at 24 years and 1 day old. And so they are 17 to 20 years old now. So come January, they will be some of them will be 24 months. And then April, the other ones will be 24 months. Cause you got some that are 17 months, some that are 20 months. And so April is Passover, but also in April, they have a train system opening up. And it's going to be running from Ben Gurion Airport straight to the Temple Mount. And so that is for people who were coming to worship at the Temple Mount, which is where they would most likely sacrifice a red heifer. They need to sacrifice the red heifer in order to for the cycle of sacrificing to start again, which we know that the Antichrist is going to end. He's going to stop all sacrifices. So see where all these things are kind of tying in? And then also Jupiter is going to be closer to the Earth on September 26th than it has been in 70 years. And Jupiter represents the male child, which is Jesus. So that's happening too. And it's interesting that it represents Jesus, the male child. And another thing interesting to note is the UN, they're having that General Assembly. It's the 70th Assembly. And it's also when the Prime Minister of Israel is set to state Israel was ready for a two-state solution with Palestine. And remember, Israel is the fig tree that Jesus talks about. Okay, they are the fig tree, and this is the fig tree generation. So did you notice all the sevens? Yeah, 7 means completeness and fullness. Okay, so it's kind of like whenever Noah and his family went into the ark, and the door to the ark was so big that God had to shut that door because they couldn't. And so he had to shut it. Well, before the rain became and the rain started and the flood came, they were in that ark for 7 days completion. So, and then once all the rain and the flood started, God raised that ark all the way up so that they were out of danger, right? So that they were out of the tribulation going on in the earth. And then when it was over, he brought them back down again. It's a resemblance to the rapture. We're brought up out of the tribulation, and then at the end, we come back down. And, just like Jesus said in Noah's time, people were marrying and giving in marriage and partying and just not thinking, not paying attention, not watching. And I noticed over the last few days, I've tried to talk to a few people about things, and they don't want to hear it. They just don't want to hear it. They might listen for a minute or two, but they kind of look at me like I've grown a third eyeball, like I'm crazy, or they just don't want to hear it because it's scary. There's nothing scary about this. This is awesome. I mean, this is the time. You are privileged to be in this time. We are. You just, if you haven't accepted Christ, though, I would not wait. Even if the rapture doesn't happen, you are not guaranteed tomorrow. God doesn't want anyone to perish. He wants us all to come, wants us all to be with him. And it's our choice whether or not we do that. And you won't regret it. Okay. Another thing too about what's going on next week with the Jewish feast. They last until, there's 3 of them, and they last until October 10th. So they're going to be going on for a couple weeks. And Palestine has stated that if any Jew wears the priest, clothing, the rabbi clothing, or blows the shofar, their terrorists are going to attack. Well, of course, they're going to blow the shofar because that is part of their religious beliefs. So they're going to blow it 100 times. This is their celebration. Is how they celebrate. So that's going to happen, and they will be wearing their clothing. I mean, so we'll see what's going to happen with Palestine. I know they're on high alert for that. It's kind of interesting. The Jews are on high alert for those types of things, but Christians are on high alert for Jesus coming back. So yeah, everybody's on high alert, and it's kind of, unfortunately, the Jews are on high alert for a completely different reason. And unfortunately, because of the facts that they do not believe that Jesus is the Messiah, and they believe their Messiah is coming, they're going to be fooled. So prayers for them. Okay, guys. And this is all I have for right now. I'll keep you updated on anything else going on. And if anything happens that, can't wait till Monday. I'll get on tomorrow or even over the weekend, as much as I have to make sure that we get through these next few weeks and we know what's going on. And if you guys would share this with someone, I really would appreciate it. And if you would subscribe and like our channel, I would really appreciate it as well. And if you want to leave us comments to ask questions or just a comment, please do. And then if you don't want to leave a personal comment, but you want to, say something, you're welcome to email us at twofriendsandabible@gmail.com. And hopefully, if I don't see you Monday or Tuesday, maybe hopefully we're flying home and I'll see you in the air. Maranatha.